and welcome to the Koali webinar for Modular Technology. I'm Susan Sorensen. I'm the product manager at Koali for our research-sponsored programs, and I'm so happy you could join us today. Today, everyone will be on mute, all of the attendees, and throughout the presentation, we'll have some dialogue and discussion between our panelists today, but we will open up for a QA discussion at the end. So if you have any questions, feel free to type your questions in. And you'll notice that at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there is a QA feature. So feel free to add any questions there and we'll review those at the end today. For your benefit, this webinar is recorded and you will have a link to the recording which will be shared to you once we're complete. And feel free to share that with any of your colleagues that weren't able to attend today but had an interest in attending. So before we begin our discussion about our modular technology and the importance of modular technology, I wanted to go around and discuss all of our participants today, give a little introduction to who they are. So to begin with, first we have Peter Brown, and he works as a technical lead on research administration systems at Indiana University. And he's been a longtime community member. He spent over 7 years working with Indiana's Koali COIAS and now Koali Research System and implementation. Peter is involved in their multiple upgrades and numerous pre-award and compliance modules, as well as acting as a liaison to other Indiana University technical teams and the broader quality community in general. So hello and thank you, Peter. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And then also from Indiana, we have Marlise Brown. So she's from their research compliance office and she began that position in 2011. And her current role is really primarily focused on selecting systems and meeting the operation and regulatory demands of research compliance at Indiana University. As you know, that is an ongoing task as the landscape continues to evolve and change. She also promotes those best practices for the functional implementations, manages the maintenance and engages in strategic planning, partnering with both the functional and technical professionals to meet the mission of Indiana University. Hi and welcome, Marlise. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Susan.
And then on to our dear Sarah Crane, who's also here from Koali. She is the product manager of curriculum management and catalog. And prior to the 2 years that Sarah spent with us here at Koali, she served as a product manager in K-12 education technology. So Sarah is very passionate about higher ed. Hi, and thank you for joining me today, Sarah.
Thanks, Susan.
And then last but certainly not least, Garret Yoshimi, the VP of IT and CIO of the University of Hawaii system. And University of Hawaii has also been with us in the community for a very long time as one of the original partner schools for Koali. And that went all the way back to the beginning of the foundation. So thank you for joining us today, Garret.
Thanks, Susan. Good morning, everyone.
Hi. So thank you for joining us today, panelists. We are really looking forward to your insight about modular technology as that's a hot topic for many people. So let's see, the first thing that we wanted to discuss today was just getting started with each of the product lines that you use. So perhaps you could start us off, Peter.
Yeah, definitely. Indiana also has pretty wide installation base of quality products over the years. I don't know how long it's been going on, but 8-9 years now, I think. Obviously, we work primarily, Marlise and I work primarily with what was called Koali COIAS, now is being called Koali Research. We have numerous modules implemented, awards, prop dev, institutional proposals, compliance for human subjects. We, about now, I guess, probably starting in 2017, we are now making use of the COI application in the new Koali Research stack. Koali's hosting that for us. Marlise, did I forget anything off the top of the bat? We also have KFS and a variety of those other systems involved, but that's not exactly our forte.
Covered it pretty well.
Let me jump in for the University of Hawaii. Like Indiana, we're one of the original foundation members, so our participation goes way back into the early years of the Koali Foundation. From a product perspective, Not only are do we use quality research in our current environment, and we do include the COI module on an on-premise implementation. We're also KFS partners, so we've been KFS users for, again, since the inception of the product. We are KSCM customers, so curriculum management customers. Thank you, Sarah. We are also one of the original partner group in the what was App Builder, what previously was Rice, and which is now Build. So one of the up and coming quality products. And actually, like Indiana University, we implement a number of on-premise custom Rice implementations to do specific workflow applications for the university outside of the baseline quality products.
Wonderful, thank you all. And when we're thinking about that, are there particular ways that you've noticed that the modular technology has helped to improve your processes?
We have. So let me start from our perspective. You know, we're finding the ability to use, and I'll call it bits and pieces, but modules of various pieces of software. And this is not limited to quality, but for a number of our other implementations, I think the on-premise independent Rice flows are a good example of this, where we've been able to take pieces of the base quality technology and then use that to help integrate some of our other workflows, and frankly bring pieces together to help the business side of the house interact more efficiently with other parts of the organization. This is actually a theme within both the research as well as the KFS implementations, where there's the modularity that's built into the software allows us to pick and choose what works best for our organization on the implementation side. And then again, allowing us to connect different applications together is really, I think, one of the greatest benefits of the modular approach.
For us, most recently, one of the benefits of the modular approach is with the quality research COI module. We were needing to further our conflicts of commitment implementation and utilize the groups functionality. We wanted to harmonize our unit hierarchy, is kind of what it's called in our monolith modules. And we wanted to take that from KFS and load that into the COI groups. And we were looking at whether we could go ahead and harmonize that in our Quality CoES on-premise modules. And we weren't able to do that at the exact same time. So because we had COI in its own module and it's in the cloud, and we were able to go ahead and roll out our conflicts of commitment functionality, which is really needed that unit-based groups functionality to support that process. So we were able to just move forward with that while we continued to analyze the other need to harmonize the other structures locally.
That's a really interesting point you bring up there, Marlise, that even though it is the same, because it's modularized, it gives you a little bit more flexibility in how you want to actually implement that for the use.
Yeah, not having to, I mean, we'll probably get to this with other parts of the conversation, but not having to necessarily get everyone directly on the same page, but still be able to make progress, knowing that it's the right path, but not based on a decision made 7 or 8 years ago. We can really just keep those processes moving.
Yeah, implementations can certainly be challenging, so it's great when you pick the right technology to make that smoother.
I think so one of the interesting things in particular with that COI module is we're now looking at, we have a different conflict of interest requirement that goes across employees. So kind of a superset of the research PIs, but we're actually looking at adopting the COI module under KR as a system-wide conflict of interest module, because the requirements are very similar, but hey, it's modularized, so we can actually take it and plunk it in for a different set of customers at the same time.
Just from my side, this is something we see a lot with our customers, and especially with our prospective customers as well, is this need to be able to keep, as Marlise said, systems running smoothly, being able to plug in those pieces that make the most sense for the problems that an institution is trying to solve right now. That's one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've gotten most recently, actually, is, you know, we are a large institution, or we're a small institution. It doesn't seem to really be dependent on the size, but we have a problem we're trying to solve. If we try to find a large system that does, you know, a really wide variety of things to solve this one particular problem, it's going to get bogged down in the processes at our institution. It's going to be a difficult implementation, to your point, Susan. It's going to be very costly. Whereas if we can find a modular solution that we can easily implement, that talks with the other systems that we already have in place, and that we have confidence will talk to future systems that we employ, we can avoid some of those traps. And that's one of the biggest benefits of the tools that we provide, is that that's a big thing that's at top of mind for us, is how can we create technology that helps our institutions keep their processes moving to deliver the value that they're there to provide to students.
So Sarah brings up a really good point. So all of us have these huge monolithic systems that sit in other parts of our organization. So a great example is our student information system. We talk about monolith, it's huge. The ability to forklift those huge systems is hugely impactful in a negative way to the organization. So if we have the capability to adopt modules at a time and do it in a way such that we can implement it without having this huge big bang thing going on, while being well integrated, I think that gives us a huge advantage in being able to both deliver stuff quickly into the organization, as well as not be as impactful as some of the, as historically we've had to be with some of these large systems.
And from the quality perspective of that also, that, you know, when we were talking about how we want to create software, we decided that we wanted to make it so that customers, that schools want to buy the suite of products, not that they have to buy the suite of products. So you're giving the opportunity, and hopefully we're providing you with something that's enticing enough that you want to buy those pieces, and not really forcing people into that situation, because we know that's not beneficial. Yeah. So let's see. One of the other things that we were wondering about is just how it has been impactful to connect to other software solutions that you've been using, and what ways you've been able to leverage that so far.
Yeah, so whatever we at IU, we integrate with a lot of things. We have reporting systems. We have our old KC monolith. We have, I'm trying to think what other, we have, I guess those are some of the main two. And we have all sorts of little batch processes that integrate with using some of the behind the scenes technical APIs to communicate back and forth. The new modular systems are making that a lot easier, just because there's so much we can do on an automated real-time basis or a batch basis in terms of an overnight process. Yeah, so I mean, if you tried to integrate something, we probably have as well. We have a lot of different hooks into the systems at this point.
We have, while we're not nearly as far forward as the IU folks are in some of their integrations, that's in fact one of the key strategies we've built into our processes on a going forward basis. I think we briefly mentioned the build product early on. That's actually, we have very high hopes for how that helps us to tie various systems together through API integrations on the back end, but really gives us a way to bring the workflows together, bring some of the different component pieces together without, again, having to forklift large implementations. I think the future for us really is in the integration space. It's complicated. It requires an investment on the part of the institution to make it happen properly. But that is the way to that we see is the way for us to move forward. Again, being able to deliver value in a timely manner and kind of minimizing the impacts to the business of the organization as we implement these pieces of technology.
And do you think there are any areas for improvement there? Anything that we should consider?
Yeah, so I'll jump in from the technical aspects of the approach. I think there needs to be work, and this isn't quality specific. This is across the industry. There needs to be work to make the integrations um, as straightforward and repeatable as possible. So that speaks to standardization, consistency of interfaces, consistency in how each of the different systems need to hand off to each other. So it's consistency in the integration point, where the APIs are standard, or at least they're standardized so that there is a consistent and repeatable way to do this across different entities, different systems, different organizations. We each have different flavors of infrastructure that talk to each other. So the ability to raise the integration up to a layer that's standard, straightforward, repeatable, and repeatable also helps on the resource side. It makes it easier for us to do this on a regular basis, such that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time we integrate with another vendor's product. So, and this is, again, this is industry wide. So the ability to be in front of the standardization process is really important. It will require investment on the part of both vendors as well as customers, but I think there's a huge payoff for us in the long run.
And does that resonate with you also, Peter, from a technical perspective?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the more standardized, predictable is standardized, meaning on an industry level and just within the application that you're using. Yeah, that definitely makes a technical team's job easier. It's easier to bring a new developer online faster if there's somebody new hiring, and it's just easier when you sit down and face a new problem or a new feature request. It's like, okay, well, we've done this 4 different times with a different URL. Now we just have to change that and change some of the data, and then off we go. And so, yeah, it definitely makes integrating other systems and features much faster, efficient, and less scary.
That's a good point too, the less scary part, that it can be intimidating. Yeah. Especially since this is a relatively new concept in recent years, of sharing all the data. And one of the things that I've been hearing as we're talking about is just the value add of this, using the modular technology, both in terms of being able to have the system extend, but also value in terms of dollars, whether that be the expense that you spend on the systems or the time that people are spending and putting into making that work. Do we feel like that's really one of the most predominant reasons that people are choosing modular technology, or do we think that there might be other indications that have other types of added value?
So the modular technology speaks to the best of breed approach that many of us have chosen to use over time, rather than simply picking one vendor and doing everything according to that vendor's playbook. The ability to pick and choose the things that fit our business process the best and provide the highest value really fits well with the modular approach. So in the past, so let's roll the clock back to the 60s. If you picked IBM, you were cool, period. That's end of story, end of game, and by the way, end of your wallet because you had to pay for it. But in the current environment, it is useful for us to be able to look at solutions offered by different companies. Many of the new solutions offered now are SaaS solutions. So integration is the way you have to connect these things together. And the modular approach allows us, again, to pick and choose the stuff that is high value to the business.
I think the benefit too that we see also comes from being able to pick very specialized solutions. There's a lot of very particular problems that people are trying to solve that are specialized to their particular industry or their particular function or size of institution, or pick your variable there. And I think having modular solutions available allows you to make sure that you're making the best of the resources that you have and aligning yourself with a solution that solves your particular problems. And I think what this also does is it enables institutions to work with vendors that are really laser focused in on their customers and the particular problems of that customer. So the agility that involves is really different than, to Garrett's example, that a company like IBM back in the day or even now is really able to provide. Because when you're serving such a large percentage of the market, it's difficult to be agile enough to address the needs of the particular set of customers that you're hoping to solve problems for.
I love that you brought that up, Sarah, because I feel like there are so many people that we talk to, and it's literally that like square peg in the round hole, and somebody's trying to cram their process into something that's not been based on higher ed. And it really makes it difficult to do that effectively, and that this gives people more opportunity to fit their practice with the right vendor.
And I think that adds value for the university too. And we talk about these large institutions, higher ed, if they're not having to repeat data collection in multiple systems, if they can extract from one system to spin up another one in a faster way to meet that need, whether it's from the student side or the HR side or the research compliance and administration side. I know I said earlier, maybe we don't need to get everyone on the same page. That doesn't mean that there's not a broad picture understanding of the needs and the goals, but in terms of the pacing that's available in a large institution, sometimes it is better to keep that ball rolling for the particular need you're trying to solve and still use accurate, up-to-date university level information without having to require everyone else to put all the resources toward, say, an old version of an upgrade would be kind of what we'd be primarily working on in the past.
I was recently, oh, sorry, Susan.
No, please do.
I was recently on campus at one of our customers' schools, and we met with a really broad variety of people, different, varying levels of responsibility on campus. And so what Marlise is saying really resonates with me because I was just amazed. I mean, as a product manager, my job is to get into this world and to understand the problems that we're trying to solve. But that's it's an ongoing effort on my part. But I was really amazed to see just how much is happening at any given institution. All of the different problems that are needing to be coordinated across campus, needing to be coordinated with vendors, just how difficult that can be to keep track of all of these things that are really important and really important to very specific sets of, of users or departments or colleges or admins within the institution, and how that impacts other elements of the institution. It was really amazing to me. And I think, a lot of times when we talk about modular technology, we think about how this works with institutions or vendors outside of the university. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there too to work within the institution for tools that might be homegrown, or processes that might involve IT, for example, things that have been working within the institution that also require that really high level of collaboration to keep those overarching goals, to Marlise's point, in mind. That was something that I was really struck by, and I thought it's really great that we can provide these tools that help that communication and collaboration happen within the institution as well.
Sarah brings up a really good point. The flexibility is critical. So all of us these days, while everybody believes, and some of us know, that higher ed is special, the market pressures in the current environment around student success, recruitment, retention, all of those things put together mean that not only do we have our existing workflows, our existing business processes in place, but the need to be pretty agile as the institution moves forward to compete in this environment is super critical for us. So, so going back to the theme, the modularity is really the way that we can respond in a more timely manner, because coming back and saying, that's a really good idea, we can do that, and we'll slot it in 3 years, not a good answer. We'll see you'll see the IT folks strung up from the yardarm if that's the answer. That if that's the only answer we can provide, the institution will go elsewhere to figure out how to do this stuff. So we have to be able to respond on a timely basis, especially given all the pressures to the higher ed vertical at the current point in time.
And I was going to add to that and say, I think that is true for both big picture upgrades or, picking a new solution for, but also even smaller feature requests on a day-to-day basis or a month-to-month basis, is having these modular type applications. It really just makes adopting smaller and medium-sized changes that much faster. You can do it. You're not worried about bringing down the entire application for a day while you upgrade one little piece of it. You can just punch it out when accidents happen, because they do. The scope is minimized, and it just makes everything easier and less scary, both on a small day-to-day level and on the big picture of what application you're going to go with.
I like that this kind of circled back to the idea that your return on investment can also be time, right? That's such a critical piece of this. And with your modular technology, you can save time in your delivery.
Yep.
Is there any other impact relating to the personnel that have been seen to your institutions in regards to modular technology and how it changes the lives of the people that are working with it?
Yeah, so we can speak to it from two fronts. One from the business side of the institution. As both Peter and Marlise have said, we see a lot of positive impact by being able to respond. The impacts on the backside are interesting as well. It does make it, at least as we adopt the new stuff, it does make it a little bit stressful for the mechanics that work behind the scene to make this stuff happen. But I think as we are able to establish some standard practices within the organization, that will start to go away. Peter mentioned earlier on the ability to bring new people into the organization with established standards and practices. It makes it a hugely easier to onboard new folks into the practices of the organization, rather than in the past, or so frankly now, the learning curve is huge. It's It's different from what a lot of other folks have done in the past. But what we want to do is get to the point where we can onboard a lot faster. We can use broader kind of ranges of skills and talents to do this stuff from a mechanical and a technical point of view. And again, back to the ability to deliver to the business side is the ability to be agile and responsive, and to be able to deliver in a timely manner. And time is money. I mean, it's there. There may not be you may not be able to squeeze $1 directly out of it, but you know what? If you don't perform and you don't deliver, the dollars will go elsewhere. Trust me on that.
Right, it's a saying for a reason. All right, before we move into the QA period, is there anything else that any of you have on your mind that you would want to share related to modular technology that you're using at your institutions?
One final thought that I had just in terms of improvements that we've seen at IU by taking this modular approach with the COI module while having some of the older modules on premise is that we've been able to get the COI disclosure data in real time to our sponsored programs and our IRB office. And that's been hugely, that's been a really good improvement for those offices. And that's because of the APIs and the other integrations and connections that were able to be established. So that's been a benefit on all sides.
Can see that definitely. All right, so then let's head into the questions. If you haven't already taken the opportunity to add a question, you'll notice that at the bottom of the screen there is a feature that's marked as Q&A, and just add your question there and we'll review it together. So we do have one from Concordia University in Chicago. And the question is, do you use a Kuali database or one from a vendor like Banner, PeopleSoft, so forth, or build one for your institution using Oracle or MS or open source?
So yeah, at IU, with our on-premise installations of the RICE and KFS and KC, those are all living on-premise Oracle databases. The vended Kuali co-hosted COI, I believe that uses a combination of the newer Mongo database, which Kuali hosts for us. Alongside, I think there might be a MySQL database there as well. But yeah, we don't have direct access to those because that's what we're letting Kuali handle for us. So yeah, we have our own on-premise Oracles, and Kuali Co has their own on-premise Mongos, etc.
Yeah, we have so we have a similar mix of different backend products and processes. We do support data marts within the kind of the verticals of each of the primary enterprise applications. So a data mart behind financials, behind research, behind HR. We've actually made several attempts to integrate these together because the principles that each one are built upon are a little bit different. So we have a current effort to bring some of that stuff together in a broader warehouse that incorporates all of them. So I actually think IU's pretty far ahead of us in this, and that they've already done this work, as have some of the other higher ed institutions. I think most of us tend to do this outside of the individual vendor products because of the nature of the enterprise software that we've chosen. So for example, if somebody only runs, if somebody only runs Banner or PeopleSoft products across all of their enterprise stacks, they could potentially adopt that vendor's data warehouse that goes across the institution. In most of our cases, and I know both Hawaii and Indiana are like this, we've adopted kind of the best of breed in different areas. So it's necessary for us to adopt something that we have to take a look at. Here's the integration word again, integrating those different vendor products into either a purpose-built or a self-developed data warehouse that brings all of those pieces together. Because data data is not data. Data is different depending on where it's coming from. So the necessity to bring it together creates a pretty difficult exercise to produce a warehouse that's useful across the institution. Most of us, from a back-end point of view, are in fact looking at either MySQL or some other open source database to build this upon. There's the challenges of some of the licensing costs with the other large database vendors. We won't mention their names, but everybody knows them. So it is an exercise. It's an ongoing exercise to figure out how to do this for an institution.
Yeah, and I could add a little bit of additional information from our customers who are implementing from the Kuali research side, that we do have a lot of schools that utilize feeds from other vendor products such as Banner and PeopleSoft and Blackbot and some of those other external areas. So again, just kind of highlighting that need that if you're going to do best in breed, you also need to make sure it's possible to have interaction between those. So Kuali does have a lot of APIs for that purpose. Okay, so let's see. The next question is asking about a research institute who has close to 60 research projects a year, and they have manual controls of proposals, changes, annexes, contracts, awards, cooperative agreements, reports, and all of the administration related to it. I understand that Kuali research could be a great help in starting to move to modular technologies. Is that correct? I think we could say yes. And do you think that we could be in contact with some of the universities that use Kuali research to share their experiences and to inform authorities? So for that type of question, I think that we certainly could put you in contact with some additional external references. And is there anything specific that you have a question about regarding managing all of those different areas? I think one of the things that sometimes comes to mind when people are talking about research and managing all of those different segments is talking about, is it necessary to also potentially integrate with management of those proposals or external information that would be feeding in? Let's see. So
Susan, let me jump in on this one a little bit.
All right, thanks.
Given the description and the size of the research practice, so this actually goes to not only the modularity of the research product, but also the SaaS offering as well. So for an institution kind of moderate size, or frankly, even for the smaller ones as well, the ability to stand this up without doing a lot of on-premise lifting. So in other words, to stand it up in the Kuali cloud. So as the ability to deliver these modules on a SaaS basis actually should work really well for the size institution that you're talking about. And again, the ability to stand it up without on-premise heavy lifting, I think gives you a unique advantage to be able to implement without having a bunch of heavy work and costs in the front end, to simply basically turn the stuff on and then allow you to implement module at a time module at a time in your institution, to not only gain benefits in a timely manner, but also do it in a way that you could kind of gradually move your business processes over a segment of the institution at a time. So I mean, I think it's a good opportunity to take a look at the SaaS product and figure out which modules might make sense to try, and then be able to move forward with frankly a pretty low cost hurdle.
So do you have any other recommendations in terms of getting that institutional level buy-in for the modular route? Are there ways that you might be persuasive to higher up, such as yourself, Garret?
So it is important to make sure that you have kind of a long-term view in terms of how the different pieces could all come together. That doesn't mean you have to implement everything at once. So in the past, you would have to kind of forklift the whole thing and say, if you want it, here it is. You have to do the whole thing. You could use pieces at a time, but you have to actually implement the whole monolith before you can get any benefit. So I think it's important to take a look at the long-term planning from what might the entire solution do for the institution, and then take a look at some of the folks that have implemented the whole thing, but also look at how the modules can be phased in over time, so that the institution can take benefit and as well as cost in small pieces to move the organization forward. So I take a look at it from that point of view and look at some of the institutions that have implemented, say, the full range of KR. In particular, look at some that have started with KC, with Quias early on, because they've evolved as the product has evolved. And then take a look at how that might, how the current solution might solve problems and provide opportunities for, for the small and medium-sized research practices.
And Marlise and Peter, did either of you have to make an argument towards the modular SaaS technology, or was there kind of immediate buy-in that did you have to be persuasive?
I can take this one for first stab at it, Peter. Really, the decision to go with the research COI product was a really great one for us at the time, because we were very interested in the newer designed quality modules, but because we have the implementations on premise with the older quality COIS modules, is just a very big lift, to get to that next point. So for the research COI, we had been using kind of a homegrown version of an eDoc Lite through Quali Rice, but it was at IU, and so to go to COI in the cloud, we had no requirements for data migration, and we had a very well-defined form and process on the research side that had been there for years. And so it was actually a really easy decision to go that route, because we were working with very well-defined parameters and not a lot of overhead in terms of getting legacy data into a system. Now the decision to bring in the conflicts of commitment into that same system has required a lot more coordination and planning and effort, and that's been great. That's been live for a year now. So that was sort of an additional added value that we were able to provide to the university once we were able to get that initial research system turned on.
And let's see, so do you think that by nature, the modular technology is really the future of what people would be focused on? Is there a reason that people wouldn't want to go towards modular technology? It seems kind of like we've been discussing all of the value adds for that and the benefits of moving in that direction. Is there any reason why people might not consider that?
So the folks that might not would be, I think, institutions that have, so I'll make some assumptions. I think institutions that are relatively small in size and skinny in cost, that have already adopted a monolithic solution, are probably pretty connected at the hip to that solution. Such that any change might be difficult for them to adopt. Having said that, at some point they're going to have to, even the small ones that have adopted it and are kind of married to a single vendor solution, at some point are going to need to figure out how to upgrade from either a regulatory or reporting competitive point of view, there's going to be pressures on the institution regardless. And then if and when those pressures, not yet, but when those pressures are applied, in fact, the modular approach is going to be their way to kind of escape the lock-in for the single monolithic solution. So again, to answer your question, I think there are individual use cases that might have people locked in at the moment. Having said that, I think modular is the way to go on a going forward basis, and even the ones that are literally kind of locked in and fully integrated with a particular vendor at some point are going to be pressured to do something different.
Yeah, I think that that's an interesting point, that even if you are smaller and locked into this one vendor solution, that because if you move towards a modular technology, that you have the option to do that gradually. As Marlise was talking about, it doesn't have to exactly match the same process that your enterprise-wide system matches. It gives you a little bit more flexibility to getting to where you need to go. And one of the last thoughts that I kind of had about that was that as we've been talking about modular technology, I've realized that a lot of the way that we see modular technology at Quali is also very closely connected to the way that we are a SaaS company, and that so often, we're releasing new information available, and so not only is it modular, it's reactive, like you were saying, and able to quickly adjust to those evolving changes, and how there's suddenly different requirements and you need to do those right away and right now. And so maybe that's something we can dive in a little bit deeper on an upcoming webinar as well. But I wanted to take a moment here to thank all of you for attending. It's been wonderful talking to you and getting your insight, because you do work with these customers in this situation every day. And by customers, I mean your end users, of course. And it's just great to hear your feedback about what that experience is like and the value that you can provide to them in this modular technology approach. So again, thank you all so much. And as a reminder to those of you who are on the call today, the presentation was recorded, and so we will be able to send a follow-up email with the link to the recorded information, so that if you want to share that, feel free to with any of your colleagues. So thank you for attending today, and have a great day.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Susan.